Assalamu alaikum my dear students. Today I will tell you about the process of diffusion, that how it occurs and how diffusion of gases occurs from alveoli into the capillaries. So we know that in the first process of the ventilation, what happens, the air comes in and then it diffuses. Now I would tell you about that what are the factors that affects the diffusion process. Factors affecting diffusion. So we will go into the deep detail about those factors. So the number one factor that actually affects the diffusion is the passive movement. It is the passive movement. So passive movement, it means that gas molecules tend to flow from high concentration towards the low concentration. So passive movement is exactly the same, and this passive movement is the factor which actually aids the process of the diffusion. Second is the kinetic energy. So let's suppose this is a membrane, and here in this part, at this side of the membrane, the kinetic energy of the molecules is very much high. So these molecules which would have a greater kinetic energy, which would move towards the other side of the membrane, having the low kinetic energy. So this kinetic energy is also the factor which aids in the process of the diffusion. Talking about number 3, it is the pressure. So we know that all the gases in the air are collectively exerting 760 millimeter of mercury pressure, and each gas is exerting its own independent pressure depending upon its composition. Like if we talk about the nitrogen, which is 79%, and talking about the oxygen, which is 21%, and talking about the carbon dioxide, which is 0.04%. So each gas is exerting its own pressure according to its composition. Like this is exerting 600 millimeter of mercury pressure, and if you talk about the oxygen, which is exerting 160 millimeter of mercury pressure. Pressure exerted by carbon dioxide is being ignored because its composition is very much less. Now talking about the another aspect of the lecture, which is what are the factors which affects the pressure of gases on water. The pressure of gases on water. So we know that the pressure is depending upon two factors: concentration and the solubility. So we know that if the concentration of the gas is more, let's suppose this is the surface of the water, if the concentration of the gas is more, if there are more molecules, then it would exert more pressure. Then talking about the solubility, which is inversely proportional to the pressure. So we know that if the gas is more soluble in the water, then it would exert much pressure, because the gas would easily dissolve in the water. So the solubility, so greater the solubility, less would be the pressure exerted on the water. Then talking about the net diffusion, that what is the net diffusion? So net diffusion is dependent upon, we can calculate the net diffusion by this. Let's suppose this is the membrane. I have told you that the gases tend to move from higher concentration toward the low concentration, like this, because here the concentration is very much high and the concentration here is low. But it doesn't mean that the gas only move from high concentration towards the low concentration, but some of the gas molecules also move from low concentration to the high concentration. So we can calculate the net diffusion by subtracting this gas that is moving from low concentration towards the high concentration from this gas which is moving from the high concentration towards the low concentration. We will calculate the net diffusion. So that is all about the pressure of gases on water. Now calculating the overall formula of the diffusion, deriving the formula of diffusion, and what are those factors which are making that formula of diffusion. So talking about the formula of diffusion, so the formula of diffusion consists of this: B is equals to del P area, solubility, distance, molecular weight. Now I would discuss each factor independently. Talking about this first, pressure, the pressure difference, the partial pressure difference in the partial pressure. So I have told you that more the difference in the concentration gradient, more will be the diffusion. So you have to understand this concept, that if there is a greater difference in the concentration gradient across the two membrane, more the gas would diffuse. Now talking about the area, let's suppose this is the area, this is the large surface area. The more gas molecules can diffuse here because of the large area. And then talking about the solubility, we have discussed earlier that if the solubility is greater, there would be more diffusion of gases in the water. And now talking about the distance, distance is inversely proportional to the diffusion. It means that this is the membrane and the molecule is here, so it would diffuse slowly as compared to this molecule which is very much near to this membrane, so it would diffuse very much fast. And then molecular weight, let's suppose this is the gas molecule which have a very large molecular weight, so it would diffuse slowly as compared to this gas molecule which would diffuse very much fast because of its low molecular weight. So after deriving this formula, we will derive another formula by separating these two factors. By separating these two factors, we will derive another formula, that is the diffusion coefficient. So diffusion coefficient, what is the diffusion coefficient and why we have separated this? Now this solubility and molecular weight are the inherent characteristic of the gases. That's why we have formulated another formula which is known as the diffusion coefficient, which is equal to the solubility over molecular weight. So that was my lecture about the diffusion and the factors that affect the diffusion of gases. So hope you have understood it well. Thank you.